up, YouTube? Welcome back to the channel, or welcome here if this is your first time. Welcome to my 1000th YouTube video. We gotta talk about this game, man. There's a lot of questions still up in the air, a lot of unanswered questions, a lot of big ones. We're gonna get into all that. We're gonna get into my concerns that I have personally with this game, and also I'm gonna try to alleviate some of your concerns. We're gonna recap a lot of the deep dive, but we're also gonna deep dive the deep dive, if that makes sense. We're gonna jump into the nuances of some of the language used, as they describe this world and what it means. We're going to go into the 1,000 planets and what that means. A lot of people are worried about the 1,000 planets, and is it too much? Is it going to be worth your time? I'm gonna ease your mind a little bit there. I think we have nothing to worry about. We are in for a treat. I've listened to every single interview with Todd about this game. I've heard all the big podcasts go over this game. There's a lot of really good information out already about this game. A lot of stuff between the lines already. I've seen all that stuff. I've watched it multiple times, and there's a lot of hot topics that people aren't touching yet. They're not either asking about. They've been asking some amazing questions. There's a lot to this game, so obviously there's going to be a lot of questions. Obviously, they're not going to be able to cover everything. I'm sure there's some topics that are off limits, for those questions and those podcasts, but there's a lot of hot topics, I think, especially from the deep dive, that I have not heard anyone talk about yet. So we're gonna get into all that. Just a little insight to me as a gamer. Been gaming for well over 30 years, almost 35 years at this point. I love Bethesda games, regardless of platform, whatever, or style of game. I play all genres. I've beat Skyrim probably 3 times, platinumed it almost twice, beat Fallout 3 and 4, beat Oblivion. That's kind of where I really got dedicated to those universes. And this is one of my most anticipated games of all time. So let's get right into it. We got a lot of stuff to get into, but first, we are going to kind of recap a short segment of the deep dive here. We're going to listen to Todd and what his description of this game is and what that means. And we're going to look at some of my favorite shots from the deep dive. I know you have questions. If I have questions, you have questions. Throw them in the comments below. If you have a question, thought, concern, like, dislike, whatever you're feeling and thinking, put it in the comments below. I can almost guarantee I will get to every single one of them. So without further ado, let's roll.
From the Elder Scrolls to Fallout, we love creating these worlds and playing in them just as much as you do. And throughout all that time, we'd often talk about and dream up the space game. What if we could take that feeling of being who you want to be and exploring a new world, but set it in space, where you weren't really limited in where you could go or what you could do? And that is Starfield. Obviously, we've come a long way since then with the games we've built, our technology, and all of us here in the studio. We've done so much together, but, well, we've never tried to make a game like this. Starfield is our first new universe in over 25 years, but it's still a Bethesda RPG through and through, where you step into a new world and you get that feeling of unlimited possibilities. But this time, it's not just one world. It's over 1,000 worlds. Because the choice of where to go, it's not ours, it's yours. And it wasn't until now that we had the technology to create it.
Alright, so let's just hit up the elephant in the room right now. The 1,000 planets, the scale of this game, and what that means for us. I mean, first off, you have to think about what this game is. It's a Bethesda game. Everything that he said there, you have to think about every single game that they've put out before this has gotten better and better and better. Every new thing, every new trick, everything that they learn, they've implemented in the next game and evolved it even more. On top of that, you have, like he said, the technology has just evolved on top of all of that stuff that they've learned. So you have to remember that this is a Bethesda game through and through, just like he said. They're not going to just create 1,000 planets for us and that's it. There's nothing else to do. That would make no sense. So the 1,000 planets, that's just icing on the cake. Okay, so again, we got a lot to cover today. We're going to jump back and forth. I'm going to try to narrate in between and on top of some of these segments. But the 1,000 planets, here's the easiest example I'm going to give you on why that is so amazing and what that means for us. Think of a game like Fallout 4, right? Where You have a map, you have a single map, you know, maybe it takes 200-300 hours to find everything on that map. You have your cities, you have your towns, you have your warehouses, you have your safe havens, you've got everything in between and all that good stuff, right? But what do you have littered in between all of that stuff? You've got abandoned cars, abandoned buildings, abandoned gas stations, abandoned houses, abandoned warehouses, all this stuff where you just go check it out, see what's there. What's there? Loot, resources, maybe a dead body or two. There's nothing else there, and you go about your business. That's what these planets are in Starfield. They are the loot and resources in between the rest of the game. Instead of just woven into one map, you have hundreds and hundreds of these planets to go to, and we're gonna look at this again as far as what that means for how these planets map out. They're gonna tell you what's there, so you know what is going on there. They're gonna tell you if it's worth your time. They're gonna tell you what side quests you have there. And with these 1,000 planets, like, on top of that, you have like some of the sickest scenery you're ever gonna see in a video game. So let's compare that again to Fallout. You go to an abandoned house, you get all the loot, you get all the weapons, all the ammo. Maybe there's a story item there, and then what do? You read a book. Well, how about instead of that, you sit and look at some of the sickest shit you've ever seen in your life in a biome that's purple and blue and green, and you've got all these rocks flying around you and just taking all that in space. Even if you're by yourself, that's the point. The point is to have the best of both worlds, where you have that entire game that is Bethesda-like mixed in with an entire sense of desolation and isolation and looting and resourcing, and now it's just on a scale like we've never seen before. So that is what has me excited about these planets. Again, completely optional. It just adds to the scale and the scope of this game. So instead of just having a few places to go, it's all about the freedom, the scale and the scope of going literally wherever you want. And they could have done it on a smaller scale, like he said in his interview with Lex. They could have just done, 100 planets, 10 planets. They could have just done one system and just try to focus on those planets there. But then you have very little freedom of where you want to go and what you want to do. In this way, you have so much more freedom and so much more scale, and on top of that, some of the sickest scenery you're gonna see. So, all right, with that, we're gonna jump right into the next big unanswered questions. One of my probably most anticipated pieces of this game, and that is this. When I saw that, I literally got goosebumps. One of my favorite parts of the deep dive, just about 10 seconds here at the very end of the deep dive, the 40-minute deep dive, they show you that. And wow, nobody's talking about this. Nobody's talking about the potential and what that means. I definitely think it's story related, but how much are these abilities going to play an effect in the game? Is this mid-game? Is this late game? Is this going to be scattered throughout the game, kind of like Skyrim with your dragon shouts? I definitely think there's a lot more to that, and just those 10 seconds right there just changes the entire game and what it could mean for the evolution of your character and the skill trees and all that good stuff. So with the perk trees here, they showed the ability trees, right? The perk trees, and how they kind of combined what they've done in the past with the ranks and the level ups. It looks really awesome, but what I think they're not showing us is the power menu. I think there's still a hidden menu, kind of like in Skyrim where you had your dragon shout menu was separate, right? I definitely think that abilities are going to play hopefully a big part in this game. I definitely think it's story related. I think it's artifact related. We're going to jump into what I think about the story real quick here. But yeah, those 10 seconds were incredible. That changes the whole game. If you have some type of gravity abilities, I would think it's gravity related. Obviously they were floating, but you have a grav drive on your ship. The possibilities are endless, but just how much of it is going to play a role in your character and the story. All right, let's just double click on the story again real quick, just for a couple minutes, on what it could mean, the potential for it, and a big unanswered question that nobody's talking about.
Welcome to Constellation. We have a lot to talk about.
By the time you meet them, Constellation is sort of seen as this, and they're trying to find the answers to some of humanity's biggest questions.
The artifacts are so different, so alien, and I'm certain one of them reached out and spoke to you. The artifact, if you could place it on the table here.
Oh my god, look at how it's coming together.
That means there's a set built by an intelligence outside the settled systems.
Alright, that's definitely some mega between the lines stuff right there. I mean, he straight up tells you they're searching for the answer to humanity's biggest questions. And what are our biggest questions? Are we alone? I mean, come on. Obviously, there's a bunch of alien creatures in this game, right? There's a ton of alien life forms. But what are we not seeing? What have we not seen one single example of in this entire game's history of reveals? There's no alien humans, no humanoid creatures a la Mass Effect. So are we alone? And the last part of that, the guy at the table says these artifacts may have been built from an intelligence outside the settled system. So what does that mean? Like, to me, that means this is a search for humanoid alien life forms. So that's big. Alright, we're gonna hear from Todd again in just a minute, just to talk about again the vision and the scale and the scope of this game. But look at this, like, here's the meat and potatoes, okay? So Todd said roughly 10% of those planets have life. So you're talking about 100 planets with life, meaning anything. That could mean anything interactable that is moving, that you're trying to kill, that you're trying to befriend, that's trying to kill you. But I mean, look at this. They're going to have some of the most detailed, expansive, intricate, and just dense worlds we've ever seen, that they've ever built. They have some of the biggest cities they've ever built. I mean, it's all going to be just on a scale and a scope that we've never seen before in any game ever. And when you talk about how all that handcrafted stuff mixes with the procedural stuff, which we'll touch on again here in a minute, you're just talking about a game that gives you choice and freedom and scale and story on a level that we've never seen before, that trumps anything that they've ever done before in the past. And it's not even close. So let's hear from Todd again real quick from the Kind of Funny interview, amazing interview about this universe.
We wanted to do the planets because we like to give you that choice. Where do you want to go? You feel like you would want that choice in a game like this. And so first it was technically, could we pull it off? And we did technically be able to, draw these planets, make them feel believable on the screen. Now, obviously, it's procedural. Okay, so there's no way we're going to go and handcraft an entire planet. What we do is we handcraft individual locations, and some of those are placed specifically, obviously the main cities and other quest locations, and then we have a suite of them that are generated or placed when you land, depending on that planet. Now, I'll also say for us, we view it as giving you, when you look at a system, here's the menu of things you could do. And like science, and we're pushing it, about 10% of those planets have life on them. Again, we're pushing it to the edge of what do people think, what planets are in that Goldilocks zone versus planets that have resources.
Right.
I think it is a moment when you land on some of these barren planets. And again, we will generate certain things for you to find on them. But if you look at a planet, you see the resources, it has things you want. There is, I love the Buzz Aldrin quote, the magnificent desolation. I think there's a certain beauty to landing on those and feeling I'm one of the only people or the only person to ever visit this planet.
So why go this big with Starfield? Because we want to give you freedom on a galactic level. The freedom to experience both the exciting planets and the quiet ones. A way to get a sneak peek at the available resources you can use for crafting, building, and customizing.
I think what's cool about this whole system that we generate the planet itself as a procedural content, but the handcrafted content itself comes as the player explore. Our system builds a planet as the player approaches it. We stitch together a block of terrain. After that, we have the system that adds interesting locations for the player to explore, creatures to encounter, ore and plants to pick up. It allows us to add that touch of environmental storytelling that Bethesda is known for.
Okay, time for some more big unanswered questions here. Regarding this whole system, again, I think it's just icing on the cake. They're going to tell you what's there. They're going to give you some cool places to check out, amazing scenery. You can build outposts anywhere in the galaxy. But what does that look like when you return to a planet that you've surveyed 100% or a system you've surveyed 100%? What does that procedural generation do to the places you've already visited? I think is a big question. It's kind of up in the air. Is it going to alter, you know, the quests and the locations that you've already visited? How is that going to play? Are those going to be permanent locations once you uncover those and complete those side quests? And, you know, these planets without life on it, that doesn't mean there wasn't life there at one point. That doesn't mean there wasn't, there's not ruins there wasn't a cataclysm, you know, that doesn't mean there's not weaponry there. That can mean a lot of things for these planets that have quote-unquote resources. That can mean a ton of stuff, but what does that look like as far as when you return to these planets? And obviously that can tie into the story a million different ways. But another big unanswered question is the level cap. Is there a cap? Is it a soft cap, hard cap? Is it kind of like Skyrim where you have a legendary system where you can essentially level up forever? You know, I would hope that a game that they built to be played for 10 years has a pretty significant level cap, if any at all. So I'm really excited to see what that looks like in-game, post-game, and whatnot. Alright, a lot of amazing stuff so far that we've gone over. We got a couple more topics to hit, and this next one is probably my most concerning part, or concerning topic for this game. It's not even that big a deal, potentially, depending on how you look at it, but it is the blood and gore system. The level of violence in this game could go a number of different ways, and I've got some great examples for you. But first, let's check out some of these amazing looking creatures. A lot of these life forms that they've shown already and they discussed are docile and hostile, so you have a lot of good and bad in the mix. I am really excited to see what kind of creatures we're going to run into. So when you think of things like the dragons in Skyrim or the death claws or the mutants in Fallout, the possibilities are endless with this being an open universe, and I think there's a couple big unanswered questions here as well, and we're going to get into that, so let's go. Okay, look at this guy right here. This is pretty crazy that they showed this off in the trailers and the deep dives. We have these six-legged, nasty spider insect-looking things. This is a huge foreshadowing here to what the story could be about. I think this appears to be one of the main enemy types in the game, as far as one of the main threats in the game is what I'm feeling, because he's just stomping and wrecking everybody, and he is unlike any of the other creatures that we've seen so far. And in the interview with the Kind of Funny team, Todd said there's a few few bad ones out there, and there's one really bad one. I actually kind of wish he didn't say that, but he did say there's a few bad ones out there and one really bad one. So my thought is this insectoid creature race here that we have with these teeth and these legs, and that appears to be a different variant right there too, could just be one of the overall threats to the universe, to the galaxy, to the story even. And I am assuming, you know, if it is an insect-like creature, that it has an insect-like queen or whatnot that is the big baddie. I just hope that's not the only threat, the ultimate baddie, like the main threat. I really hope there's multiple threats in the galaxy, not just, you know, not just the bandits and the space pirates, and hopefully not just these guys, but they look amazing. You know, aside from the dragons and the death claws, we've never seen anything like this from Bethesda. And, you know, kind of like Skyrim, where you had dragons as the main threat, you also had dragon priests, so you had a couple of main threats to the world. So I'm really, really excited to see what this turns out to be. Alright, here we are. We're at the end of this deep dive of the deep dive. And here is my number one concern with the game, the blood and gore system. So this could go a number of different ways. Let's take a look at the ESRBs here from their last two major titles, Skyrim and Fallout 4. So Skyrim, you've got blood, violence, suggestive themes, strong language, and use of drugs, right? Fallout, you have blood and gore, intense violence, strong language, use of drugs. So a little bit more intense. And then Starfield, from their website, their ESRB, again, they're all rated mature, but it's identical to Skyrim's. So the same description there with the blood and violence. So my concern is, from what we've seen in the deep dive with primarily the gunplay, let's look at some examples here first. Okay, so I think it's going to fall somewhere in between. So they showed us stealth elements as well, but they always cut away when it comes to finishing off the enemies. And here they're actually showing just a couple scenes with some really bloody, really detailed blood elements, a lot of bloodshed, a lot of realistic looking blood, but there's no gore, there's no dismemberment, and they're not going to show that in the trailer. They never really do. They always kind of just cut away from finishing moves, executions, headshots. They never really show those in the trailer anyways, but I can guarantee you there's gonna be kill animations, there's gonna be, you know, executions, whatnot, when you sneak up behind people, stealth executions. But I think the gunplay, which we're going to look at here in a minute, is not going to go as far as I think they could for an M-rated title, and you never know, but it just, from the gunplay, it appears again that they've toned down the gore aspect. There's no intense violence or gore like there is in Fallout. And again, I'm not looking for like Doom Eternal type gore here, but Fallout has some nice kill animations, some slow motion effects when you're using those weapons and those customized builds with the different types of guns. There was different kill effects, so I really hope they have that in some way, even if they don't have dismemberment. You know, give me some really wicked headshots.
It is a shame exploration requires so much bloodshed.
You know, give me some really dope camera angles when you go into those kill animations with all those guns, because obviously there's a lot of guns in this game, but from the deep dive, it either looks like there's not going to be any of those elements, or they've toned down the blood and gore tremendously for the trailer and the sake of the deep dive, which makes sense because that's something they've done in the past. They didn't show that. They didn't show any of that in the Fallout reveal. The thing that gets me is Skyrim had decapitations, okay? So even with the ESRB just being blood and violence and not like Fallout where it says blood and gore, Skyrim, you could decapitate fools. You could level up your one-handed, two-handed weapon, and you could decapitate people. There wasn't a whole lot of blood, but you could still decapitate people. So maybe there's going to be a mixture of that, but either way, I'm really hoping they just toned it down for the trailer, and there's going to be a nice, good, visceral feel to this universe, because that would be really cool if that were the case. And it's going to be I think it's going to be different for the creatures too. I think the creatures may have a chance for full dismemberment, potentially, but again, you don't see that in the trailer. That was the main concern that I had with looking at the gunplay and the very little blood that they did show off in the trailer. Alright, let's take one last look at the combat here, uninterrupted. Tell me what you think. Are they going to add dismemberment? Did they tone down the blood just for the deep dive? Are they going to add headshots? What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Okay, closing thoughts here, everybody. Thank you again for stopping by. If you are still with me after this deep dive of the deep dive, I really appreciate you. There's a lot to cover in this game, a lot of questions, a lot of big unanswered questions, like I said, and I really feel this is going to be probably, if not the best game of the generation, one of the best games ever made. I mean, just if you've played any Bethesda game, start to finish, you know what you're getting yourself into, you know what to expect, and when you look at everything that they've shown us, I don't see how this is going to be anything short of incredible. And don't forget, this game was supposed to come out 10 months ago on November 11th. They wrote it in ink. Todd said in an interview with Ryan McCaffrey, yes, 11/11 is the date, but they pushed it back, which I really think was the right call. And if you think about them working on this game for 7 years and then 10 straight months of polishing and bug squashing, I think we're gonna be in for the best, most complete, and most optimized Bethesda game of all time. So strap in, let's hit the stars and enjoy this universe together.
Well, we've done a few things, and we have a new mobile game that we're working on that we haven't announced yet that I'm in love with.